$3,200. That's what Sydney Sweeney's family scraped together through crowdfunding and selling their belongings to move a teenager from Spokane, Washington to Los Angeles. Today, she earns millions per single episode. But the distance between those two numbers wasn't closed by luck. It was closed by a plan she drafted in a notebook at 12 years old, and what that plan demanded would push her family to the breaking point. Sydney Sweeney grew up far from the spotlight, in a lakeside home on the outskirts of Spokane, Washington. Her family had lived in the area for 5 generations, rooted in a place where ambition usually meant taking over a family business or teaching at the local school. But Sydney's ambitions stretched well beyond the county line. At 12, she filled a spiral notebook with a blueprint, not just a wish list, but a step-by-step plan for how she would become an actress, a producer, and eventually run her own company. She mapped out acting classes, audition trips, and even budgeted for headshots and travel, treating her dream with the seriousness of a business proposal. Her mother, Lisa, worked as a school teacher, while her father, John, ran a small construction business. Money was always tight. Acting classes in Spokane cost over $100 a month, and every audition meant hours on the road to Seattle, plus hotel nights they could barely afford. Sydney's first paid job, a local commercial at age 11, barely covered the gas to get there. Still, her parents took on extra shifts, sold what they could, and juggled bills to keep her dream alive. Lisa adjusted her own career, giving up steady hours so she could drive Sydney to after-school rehearsals and late-night classes. There were no industry connections, no family friends in Los Angeles, just a household that believed hard work and planning could bridge the gap between a small town and the world's biggest stages. Sydney's blueprint became the family's roadmap, guiding every sacrifice that followed. In those years, the idea of Hollywood was not a fantasy. It was a goal, written down, calculated, and chased with relentless focus. At 15, Sydney Sweeney packed her life into a handful of bags and left Spokane behind. The family sold off furniture, electronics, and even her childhood bike, scraping together enough cash to cover the first few months in Los Angeles. There was no safety net, just a rented car, a shared Echo Park apartment, and the hope that every dollar spent on rent or gas might be an investment in her future. Her mother juggled bills and worked extra hours, sometimes skipping meals so Sydney could keep up with acting classes and audition fees. Schoolwork came second to late-night shifts at a nearby coffee shop, where Sydney poured lattes and counted tips, saving every spare cent for headshots and the next round of auditions. The move stretched the family to the breaking point. Money ran out fast. Sydney picked up babysitting gigs and odd jobs to help with groceries. When rent came due and funds ran short, a small online fundraiser organized by local supporters brought in $3,200, just enough to keep the lights on for a few more months. Every day was a grind of rejection and uncertainty. Auditions meant hours in Los Angeles traffic, only to hear a quick thank you next. Some weeks, the only callbacks came from minimum wage jobs, not casting directors. Still, Sydney refused to give up. Her mother's encouragement was constant, even when the bank account dipped below zero. The family's sacrifices, selling belongings, taking on debt, living on the edge, became the silent fuel behind every step Sydney took toward her dream. By the end of that first year, she was no closer to stardom, but she was still standing, still auditioning, and more determined than ever not to let the struggle define her story. Sydney Sweeney's first real surge of visibility didn't come from a headline-grabbing lead, but from a role that almost never existed. When she auditioned for Euphoria, the casting call wasn't written with her in mind. She read for a different part, but what caught creator Sam Levinson's attention was her ability to bring depth and vulnerability to every line. Instead of letting her walk out the door, Levinson sat down and began sketching out a new supporting character, Cassie Howard. shaped specifically around what he'd seen in her audition. The decision was unusual in an industry where scripts are rarely rewritten for unknowns, but Sweeney's presence in the room made it impossible to ignore. Taking on Cassie wasn't about grabbing easy fame. It was a calculated yes, a chance to anchor herself to a show that was already gathering buzz as a future cultural flashpoint. The role demanded emotional honesty, and Sweeney delivered, drawing on years of rejection and sacrifice. As Euphoria exploded into a Gen Z phenomenon, her following on social media soared by millions. For the first time, casting directors and critics alike began to see her as more than just another face in the crowd. The part had been created for her, but it was Sweeney's relentless preparation and willingness to risk everything on a supporting role that turned Cassie into one of television's most talked about characters. That partnership with Levinson didn't just change her resume, it gave her credibility, leverage, and a new sense of creative belonging in Hollywood's inner circle. After Euphoria, Sydney Sweeney faced a crossroads familiar to many young actors: ride the wave of sudden fame, or risk it on roles that could actually expand her reputation. The answer came not through blockbuster leads, but through a sharp turn into prestige television. When casting began for the HBO anthology series The White Lotus, Sweeney was offered a supporting role, Olivia, a sardonic college student whose presence lingers long after her scenes end. The part was small on paper, but the show's creator, Mike White, saw something in Sweeney's audition that hinted at deeper layers. She accepted, knowing the series would demand more than surface-level drama. The gamble paid off. The White Lotus became a critical darling, praised for its biting satire and ensemble cast. Sweeney's performance drew particular attention from critics, who noted her ability to balance wit and insecurity in a single glance. That year, she earned a Critics' Choice nomination, her first major recognition from industry peers. The nomination wasn't just a trophy, it was proof that her choices were being watched and respected by the people who shape the industry. With one supporting role, Sweeney moved beyond the shadow of typecasting and into the conversation as a serious dramatic talent. The attention from The White Lotus didn't just boost her profile, it gave her the artistic credibility needed to negotiate for bigger, more meaningful projects. In a business obsessed with image, Sweeney's focus on quality over quantity set her apart, laying the groundwork for her next evolution, turning critical respect into lasting influence. In 2019, Sydney Sweeney took a step that would change the shape of her career. She launched 50/50 Films, a limited liability company she co-founded with then-partner Jonathan Davino. By 2022, after a buyout, she held solely control, her name alone on the filings, her signature on every major deal. This was not a vanity project. Sweeney used her company to secure the rights to Immaculate, a script she believed in enough to back with her own money. The deal, estimated near $1 million, put her in the producer's chair and guaranteed creative control. Immaculate was not just a critical success, it became a global box office phenomenon, grossing nearly $400 million against a $35 million budget. The payoff was direct. Sweeney's back-end deal and producer fee brought her personal earnings from the film to around $7.5 million. At the same time, her company produced Anyone But You, a romantic comedy with a $30 million budget that soared to $220 million worldwide. Sweeney did not stop at Hollywood. She invested in a Spokane restaurant, channeling profits back into her hometown. Through 50/50 Films, she built a diversified portfolio, acting, producing, real estate, and local business, all under her own management. Every contract, every risk, every dollar earned or lost, the responsibility was hers. Hollywood's embrace is fickle, And even the sharpest ascent comes with turbulence. After the triumphs of Immaculate and Anyone But You, Sydney Sweeney faced a string of setbacks. Eden, a prestige drama she produced and headlined, flopped at the box office and drew lukewarm reviews. Another anticipated streaming project was quietly pulled from release after test audiences failed to connect. For most young stars, this kind of stumble can mean a swift fade from the spotlight, but Sweeney had already rewritten the rules of her own career. Instead of retreating, she doubled down on leverage. Her production company, 50/50 Films, now fully under her control, negotiated first-look deals with major studios. She used the financial momentum from Immaculate, where her back-end points and producer fee netted her over $7.5 million, to bankroll new projects on her terms. While the headlines obsessed over Eden's losses, Sweeney's next contract set a new bar, a per-episode salary topping $1.2 million for the Euphoria spin-off, placing her among the highest-paid actors of her generation. By 2026, her net worth soared past $40 million, a figure built not just on acting fees but on calculated risk, equity stakes, and a refusal to let setbacks define her. Sweeney's presence now stretched beyond the screen, her choices, her deals, her image, all signaling a new kind of power for Generation Z in Hollywood. Where others saw turbulence, she saw leverage. Where others hesitated, she negotiated. The result is a career that stands as proof. Resilience and business acumen can turn even the harshest reversals into fuel for lasting influence. Today, Sydney Sweeney stands as proof that relentless strategy and resilience, not luck, define real influence. In an industry built on fleeting fame, her rise from Spokane to Hollywood's elite rewrites the rules for Gen Z. The next breakthrough isn't accidental, it's engineered. What do you think drives lasting success?